guys, hopefully you can hear me okay. I got both generals in here running right now. Checking the temperatures of the Polaris heater versus the Inferno heater. This one's running between 195 and 205, which is its normal temperature range with all stock components, stock tune, stock everything. Seeing like 104 to 105 degrees after it's fully warmed up. That's just sitting, idling. It's probably about 60 degrees in the garage right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm up my general, see what that thing does. I'm pretty sure it's quite a bit warmer than that. This one does have 8 vents instead of 6. And it does seem to blow a little harder. It actually has more force coming out of the vents. The top 2 defrosts I don't have actually plumbed yet, but everything else has got the actual vents on it. So the fan just turned off. We got up to 106.78, 107. So it's kind of strange. It is actually climbing. It's in the center vent, so it's about as close as you're gonna get. We're up to 109. So we'll just give it a little bit. We'll let them both run for a while yet. This one's been running. The fan's cycled 2 or 3 times on this already. And I got cardboard in the front of it, so it just kind of keeps that temperature up, even though, like I said, it's in a garage where it's warm. But so we'll let this one run a little bit. We'll let the 2-seater warm up, and we'll see what kind of temps I'm getting out of that. Okay, so motor's like 196, 198. We're at 4,000 RPMs. 3,500. So when you rev it up, it does get a little warmer, a fair amount warmer actually. So we'll see what it gets up to. So when you're revving it up, it'll get up to like 133, 134. You can see how fast it drops when it's just sitting here idling. So I would say in idle, it's not going to be super warm, but obviously you have no airflow blowing in the cab either, so that's going to make a difference. Whereas I think on my Inferno heater, sitting idling, it's just as hot as when you're driving it. I don't think it changes temperature at all. Well, let's kind of see where it balances out at. So 201 degrees, fans on it, it was just at 205. Again, this is all this first is the Polaris heater, 8 vents in a brand new XP4. Okay, so we're in my general now, 2-seat with the Inferno. We're at 115 degrees already. And we're only at 162 degrees engine temp. So I'll idle it up a little bit. That's one thing about the Inferno is it's pre-thermostat, so you're already getting heat. Whereas the Polaris one has the thermostat built in. You're not getting any heat until like about 180, 185 degrees. You're feeling cold air because the thermostat's closed. Where here you're already getting 120 degree air, 121 degree air, and General's only at 167 degrees. So we'll let this completely warm up and see what that temperature ends up to be. Again, we're in a garage at 60, 61 degrees. I guess it says 56 according to this, but about 55 to 60 we'll call it. so one thing is just sitting idling, no RPM. The Polaris heater is outputting about 113, 114 degree air. And as you accelerate with it, again, this is just idling, it's not under load. I don't have this one finished up quite far enough to test it there, but it's getting up to like 133, 134 degrees. So if you do a lot of putting around or idling, you know, it may take a little while longer to get up to temperature. So we'll have to see how that works once this is all sealed up, once the doors and headliner and all that stuff's in it. Obviously it's a bigger cab, but we're going to compare apples to apples here as far as temperature wise. My general is warming up the rest of the way, and we'll check that temp. As of right now, the Inferno has the win as far as if you're going to idle it, or if you're just putting around, you're not using any real RPM or going any much for distance, because the temperature is pretty thermostat, so it's going to stay warm while it's idling or while you're putting around slow. Once you're rolling with it, the Polaris heater definitely blows harder. It has a stronger fan. That much I can tell you for sure. So let's go check the other one. Okay, so as of right now, we're just getting up to about 192 degrees. Doing that same, you know, roughly 4,000 RPMs-ish. We're seeing like 149 degrees and it's still climbing. This has like the Gilliman tune for the turbo, so you're going to see a little less temp in the engine because the fan's going to turn on at like 190. So we're over 150, and engine temp still only 194. 151. Just 196 now. At idle, temp's going to come down, so we'll let it come down. So you're basically 20 degrees hotter. The Inferno's 20 degrees hotter for my calculations as of right now. Coming out of that same center vent. Max. And then we'll let it idle down here and see where it drops off. So as of right now, we're at 145.4 degrees. It's dropping a little, but it's dropping really slow. Fan's on. We're down to 189 degrees. So 144, 145 degrees. At idle, again, it's 55 to 60 degrees in the garage. Obviously, when you're outside and it's 10 degrees or negative 10 degrees, it's going to be a little different story. But as long as the cab's sealed up nice, you can expect to get that kind of temperature out of it. I have a cover for the front of my grill, and there'll be one on the 4-seaters as well. So that's going to help to keep that engine temp at a decent level, to keep the temperature inside the cab at a decent level. Alright guys, so we pulled these two out of the garage, about 55 degrees in the garage. I'm going to pull them both out. This one has the spike upper doors and the Inferno heater. Obviously this one has the turbo and everything on it too, and it's a 2-door. But we're going to kind of see what kind of temperature differences we're getting. Both of them have grill covers from Anvil, and both of them have a piece of cardboard covering roughly half the radiator. It's between 25 and 35 below zero with the wind chill. It's below zero actual temp. So we're gonna take them for a ride. So we'll see what this thing does. So this one is the 4-door. bone stock other than as far as motor wise. So this one's 183 degrees engine temp, just sitting here idling. This one is 176 degrees, and I can tell you just by feeling, without any load on them and just idling, that the two-door with the Inferno is blowing much warmer air, without a doubt, than what the four-door is. Let's see what the temp is. Hopefully this thing's stabilized. Not quite yet. So we'll give them a couple minutes. I got my thermometer just set up here a couple minutes ago. We'll get that to stabilize, see what the temperature on that says, and then we'll check the temp coming out of the vents, and then we'll also check the temp. I'm gonna leave the probe hanging out of one of the windows, and we'll cruise maybe 35, 40 miles an hour and see what that wind chill number is, if you can get it to change. And then we'll see how warm it is in the cab, and you guys can kind of decide for yourself. Again, this is a turbocharged general clutch work, got some stuff done to it. This is a stock four-door, so there's a few, you know, obvious differences. This one has Polaris doors on it, Polaris heater, Polaris headliner. This has no headliner, spike upper doors, Inferno heater. So okay, so the National Weather Service and our home thermometer says minus 0.6, so basically 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So this thing may be off calibration some, but I think it's still going to tell us what we want to know as far as the difference in temperatures. I mean, it's still dropping, but it's cold. So call it 9 degrees on this. Again, that's actual temp is 0 before the wind chill. So here's the four-door. It's at 189 degrees engine temp. We'll just throw the probe in here. We're gonna get in because it's freezing out, and we'll see what the inside temperature is. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's put this in the vent and see what we get for temperature. So about maybe 3 inches or so in. Let's see what we get for temperature. Engine's 189 degrees. It's not been driven at all yet. So it's come up 100 degrees already from what it said before. So we'll say, as of right now, 100 degrees warmer than what the temperature was outside. 111 degrees. Again, actual temperature 0. So we're just going to throw this on the seat, and we'll see what it comes up to. If I can find a place that'll stay. Wrap it around the seatbelt a couple times, I guess. And out on the seat. Okay. So 67, so you're probably looking at more like 56 degrees actual temp. Again, sorry about that. This thing has not been calibrated in a long time. I know that, I don't know, it's probably been, I don't know, a lot of years. I used to do HVAC with it. It's a Fluke brand. I know it should be calibrated, but I just pay attention to what the actual temperature is. I use it for differences more than recording an actual temperature. So again, it's 0 degrees outside. This thing we're at 11 degrees. We're at 111 at the vents. So 100 degree of warmer air blowing out of this at idle. It's not driven yet. Just sitting here idling for 15 minutes or so. Saying 65 degrees in the cab, sitting on the passenger seat, which is 11 degrees less than that. So let's go check the two-door and see what that one's about. Okay, we're in the two-seat with the Inferno heater. Put this in the dash. About that same 3-inch mark-ish. Super scientific-ish. We'll see what this one says. Again, this one, they're started at the same time, pulled out at the same time. They've both just been sitting here idling. So the number we're looking for, I guess, is the difference in what they are sitting at idle. The Inferno heater does not use a thermostat like the Polaris one does. So you start getting heat. As soon as the motor starts making heat, you start feeling heat. Where the Polaris one, until it's over 185 degrees roughly, 180, 185, it's warm, it's not hot by any stretch. So Polaris heater's at 111 at idle before being driven. Inferno's saying 130. So I mean, it's a fair amount of difference when it's 0 degrees outside. 15, 20 degrees feels like quite a bit. So we'll take them both for a ride. I'll take the 2-seat first just because I'm in it right now. I'll leave the 4-seat running. Take the 2-seat for a ride. We'll let it just stay in the vent. See where the temperature gets up to as far as the max. I'll record that on here on this video. And then I'll sit it on the seat. Actually, I'll sit it on the seat first because we did that so that we do everything exactly the same. Do that right now. Okay. Again, this is a 2-seater, so it's got a lot less area, but no headliner in the 2-seater. Spike upper doors, Inferno heater. I've gone through a lot of different spots and spaces in this 2-seat to really seal up the cab well. The 4-seat has a lot of stuff done to it as far as sealing it up, but there's still more to do. Once I'm done, this whole center console is just open. You pull these cup holders out, and you can see the skid plate. So at some point, I'm gonna go through once all the wiring's done on that 4-seat and in my 4-seater, and I'm gonna insulate the whole inside of this thing. You don't really feel any heat, but you definitely feel cold when you're when you're going with it, because air blows up underneath the center console. So 67 degrees, minus 11. I think it was 65 over there. So really, there's not a huge difference in temperature in the cab, which is kind of surprising, knowing that there's, what is that, 18 degrees difference? What did I say, 111? 111 to 130 as far as temp difference. Pretty darn close to actual inside temperatures. Temperature inside the cab, I was going 40 miles an hour, about 30 right now, about a mile. So the temperature does drop, obviously. Again, it's quite cold out, 0 degrees or less. So the temp did drop. Call it 46. Okay, 56, 57 degrees in the cab. Just slowing down to a stop sign, but I'm still going 25. 40 miles an hour, about the same mile-long strip, roughly. All right, guys. So, guys and girls, I would say, in conclusion, at this point, I've had lots of hours in the seat with the Inferno in this 2-seater. Spike upper doors, does not have a headliner, and Now the 4-seaters with a full headliner, Polaris uppers. I've done some insulating, but I have quite a bit more to do to really make them where I want them. The Polaris heater doesn't seem to put out quite as much temperature-wise, but it has 2 extra vents. There's 8 vents instead of 6. Like the Inferno has 6, the Polaris has 8. And the Polaris is more adjustable. So you have 3 fan speeds, plus you have the adjustability of the actual temperature itself, which you can't see right at the moment. But so you can turn your temperature down. Say you're warm, but your windows are frosting. You can turn the fan to high, turn the temperature down so you're not ran out of the cab with heat, and still keep your windows clear. Whereas with the Inferno, you're either high or low fan speed and heat. Or the heat is going to be consistent at, whatever the max is. You just have a low and high fan speed. The difference of price is pretty huge. So that in itself, to me, just depending on where you're at geographically, would change things for me. If it's 30, 40, 50 degrees where you're at, that's wintertime. That's your cold season or your riding season. Or it's just wet where you're at and you want to be able to turn the heat on and, take the chill out of the air, dry your clothes a little bit. The Inferno heater does everything you want it to do. If you're in the northern regions like we are and it gets way below 0 when you're riding, I think the Polaris heater gets the nod a little bit. Again, it is double the price. But the adjustability, the higher fan speeds, it blows a lot more air. There's a lot more CFM, a lot more movement. And it's pretty remarkable, actually, that 4-seat versus 2-seat, again, these have headliners in them. The 2-seat does not. That may be a good portion of the difference, because I did notice non-headliner in this one compared to when I put the headliner in. A lot of outside noise goes away. You wouldn't think that to be the case necessarily, but it definitely makes a difference. That's something that I don't think I'd go without again. For the price of it, it kind of cleans up the interior nice, and if it keeps in the heat in the winter and keeps out the heat in the summer, it's absolutely worth the money. But I think in the 4 seats, the Polaris heater is the way to go. If you're in a cold region, the Polaris heater is going to have a little bit of an edge. If you're not worried about it, most of the time we're dressed up because, what if you break down or something? You got to have some warm clothes. Even if you just have long johns or an extra layer of clothes, whatever, the Inferno is going to do everything you ever needed to do. I've ridden it 15 below, just jeans, long johns, long sleeve shirt, a hoodie, a hat, and a pair of gloves. You're more than warm enough. It keeps you out of the elements, keeps you warm. It's good. So again, I guess it's kind of a price point thing. As far as install, I'd say they're pretty similar. So I guess in conclusion, like I said, it kind of depends on geographically what you're looking at, but I give the nod to the Polaris heater, but not by much. The Inferno's a pretty darn good choice, especially if it's a 2-door. I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but I'm gonna extensively test these 4-doors out with the Polaris heaters and see how they stack up. At the end of this video, I did do some, I do some testing. It's obviously below 0, but I think they're both pretty good options, just depending on how much you want to spend and how adjustable you want it to be.